Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Hello, everyone, and I hope you have had a very good weekend. All right, so as you know, I've been warning the African-American community for at least a year on this channel that white supremacy forces are trying to roll back civil rights, mainly by discrediting the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. with salacious allegations. And quite frankly, allegations personally, I don't care if they are true or not true, for the reasons that I will share in this video. Besides, I'm not going to believe allegations from the FBI, who has targeted African Americans with such operations as COINTELPRO and other counterintelligence measures, right? But anyway, these forces are not new. We've seen them before. They've been around for centuries, trying to make African-American people a permanent underclass. They created and fought to preserve slavery, Jim Crow, systemic racism, and so much more. And one of their favorite tactics, again, is to attack our leaders. And another favorite tactic of theirs is to use African-Americans to assist them. Now, some of these African Americans are misguided Christian conservatives, and others are just flat out grifters. And what they all have in common is they're using two things: salacious allegations and social media. And social media has changed everything. But they will fail for two reasons. First, Jesus did not base the civil rights movement on Dr. King's righteousness. He founded the civil rights movement upon his righteousness. It was Jesus who caused Dr. King to lead the civil rights movement, gave him the courage to march and protest and preach for justice. And let me remind you, Jesus never calls perfect people. He calls flawed, broken, weak people to accomplish his will. So he alone can get the glory, and his light can shine through those weak people. The Bible is filled with many flawed men and women that Jesus used to achieve his purpose. And none of them were perfect because there has been only one perfect man to walk this planet. And that is and was Jesus. 2 Corinthians 4:6-8 tells us that Jesus puts his light into us imperfect earthen vessels. The Apostle Paul tells us in Hebrews 11:32-34 that God makes weak men strong to accomplish his will. And God has used many more weak, flawed men and women to accomplish his will. For example, and here's a short list of some of these flawed people that are right in the Bible, right in Scripture. For example, Noah built the ark and afterwards became a drunk man. Abraham lied about Sarah being his sister out of fear. Moses murdered an Egyptian, literally murdered an Egyptian. Then there was Rahab. She was a prostitute that God used. And don't forget about Samson, who broke his Nazirite vow and then gave in to lust. And King David, a man after God's own heart, committed adultery and then ordered the murder of the adulterous woman's husband so he could have her. Solomon, David's son, was a womanizer, an idol worshiper. And the Apostle Peter denied Jesus 3 times and was a racist bigot. Ananias and Sapphira lied about money they had received. So considering all these imperfect people that God used in the Bible, we're not about to allow white supremacists to discredit Dr. King and his accomplishments. Besides, modern-day white supremacists have coalesced around a string of white supremacists who committed horrible acts like genocide on the natives, enslaved Africans, oppressed people of color around the world, and so much more. And today they follow President Trump, who has many flaws, many flaws. So how dare they turn around and try to restore Jim Crow type conditions by discrediting a man who accomplished justice and fairness and some equality for marginalized people. But their tactics and motives shouldn't surprise us, because throughout history, white supremacy has relied on lies and disinformation. They've rewritten textbooks, distorted facts, and erased the contributions of Black leaders. They're trying to do the same thing today. They have weaponized alleged flaws that Dr. King had, hoping to undermine the movement he led. The last reason their evil purposes will fail is because God is a God of justice and righteousness. What Dr. King accomplished with his life and death was consistent with God's kingdom of justice and righteousness. White and Black conservatives cannot discredit him or the civil rights movement, because God, again, is a God of justice. He champions and identifies with the oppressed. He sides with the marginalized. He calls his followers to do the same by championing and identifying with the oppressed and marginalized. The Bible is clear about this. Proverbs 31, 8 through 9 tells us to speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Isaiah 1:17, a favorite verse of mine, commands us to seek justice, encourage the oppressed, and defend the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. And these are not suggestions. They are our marching orders. And as long as we remain faithful to these principles, no one can undo the work of the civil rights movement. Whatever flaws Dr. King may or may not have had pales in comparison to men and women in Scripture, and certainly the white supremacists who enslaved and oppressed our ancestors, as well as those today who continue to fight to conserve white supremacy and systemic racism. Keep in mind, never forget, this effort to discredit Dr. King is all a smokescreen for their true intentions, which is to roll back civil rights legislation. White supremacists have specific goals, which are to repeal and gut the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as they did the Voting Rights Act, and as they will try again with the Fair Housing Act. We Blacks who are thinking straight and have refused to allow anyone to use disinformation to infect our thinking with foolishness and nonsense, we must fight back and fight back hard. Hello, everyone. I got great news. The merch is finally here. We've been waiting and waiting, but we can finally begin branding our channel. But we need your help to get our brand out there. If you like what we provide and like what you see, please go to the channel and grab your hoodie, your t-shirt, your mug, and we got more designs and products on the way. Just visit our YouTube channel at the Defiant Lawyers Network. Also, we will donate a portion of each dollar you spend on our merch towards some nonprofit. And remember, as always, stay woke. Because as I've shown you in previous videos, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is still protecting our rights today. Those various titles are still applicable today. Today. The Voting Rights Act of 1965, yes, they gutted key provisions of it. But we still need the remaining provisions to fight back. Moreover, we need to get out and vote in record numbers to get the right people in place so that we can restore those provisions that SCOTUS gutted from the Voting Rights Act of 65. And I've told you many times that President Trump, along with Ben Carson, who was over HUD in Trump's first term, tried to gut the Fair Housing Act of 68. And I'm sure they will try again. So listen, again, don't let anybody tell you, anyone tell you that our civil rights protections are not today relevant. If so, as soon as they say that, run away from them. Run away from them. If they said that through social media, if they said that through YouTube, through TikTok, through X or Instagram, don't follow them. Unsubscribe, because they are basically repeating white supremacy talking points. And we've always had those kinds of African Americans in our community, always. When Nat Turner organized an insurrection and rose up to free African American people from slavery, it was grifters on the plantation who sold him out. We've always had them. We always will. Even Jesus had one in his group, Judas, who sold out Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver. So those folks we're going to have with this, but you must make sure that you listen to the experts. The experts. When the grifters are trying to tell you things, when the pro-black imposters are telling you stuff, fact check them. Look it up for yourself. Do your own research. Read books. Get the opposing opinions so that you're not misled. A huge reason why Trump is in office today is because MAGA used some African American people to target our community with disinformation. We saw it all over social media. And that caused African American people to the millions to either vote the couch or to vote for Trump. And what did Trump do? He thanked you and then he spanked you because you fell for the okie-doke. You got bamboozled. And how do you know that? Because as soon as he came in office, he released a barrage of executive orders targeting African American people. Executive orders that are extremely anti-black. And anyone who tells you that losing DEI will not hurt blacks but help blacks, and that's an upcoming video. I'm releasing that video soon. Again, leave that person alone. Unfollow them, unfriend them, unsubscribe. Because they're misleading you and it is costing us. It cost us in 2016 and it's going to cost us big time in 2024. And it's all based on this notion that it's hurting the Democrats. How many times have I said what is plain and naked to the eye? The Democrat politicians are doing fine. They won't miss a beat. Most of them are millionaires. They're doing well financially. It is working black people who suffer. Working, poor, marginalized black folks in the hood, oftentimes, who suffer the most from Trump policies. So don't you dare be misled by these folks smiling in your face, grinning, looking and sounding real pro-black, but at the same time are helping an anti-black politician and an anti-black white supremacist movement get in office to roll back civil rights, to roll back affirmative action, to roll back DEI, and anything else they think helps us. All right. I am Reverend and civil rights attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video. And always, always stay woke.